The morning sun rose over New Harmony like it had for the past 10 years. The golden light spread across endless fields of wheat that swayed gently in the breeze. This small colony on Kepler 442b was home to 15,000 people who had left Earth behind to build something new. They were farmers, teachers, doctors, and engineers. Simple people with simple dreams of a peaceful life among the stars. Jake Morrison stood in the control room of the defense station, sipping his coffee and watching the morning reports scroll across his screen. He was the commander of colony security, though the job was more boring than it sounded. Most days, he dealt with lost cargo shipments or helped repair the automated asteroid deflection grid. New Harmony had never seen real trouble. Out here on the frontier, they were too small and too far away for anyone to bother with. His assistant, Sophie Blake, sat at the communications desk, running through the daily checks. She was young, barely 25, and had joined the colony with her parents when she was 15. Sophie had grown up here, gone to school here, and planned to raise her own family here someday. The colony was her whole world. Down in the fields, Henry Cooper drove his harvester through rows of golden wheat. He had been a banker back on Earth, but out here, he had found his true calling. There was something honest about farming, something real. His hands were calloused now, his back was strong, and he slept better than he ever had in his old life. He waved to his neighbor, who was working the adjacent field, and got a friendly wave back. In the colony school, Laura Stevens was teaching a class of 30 children about Earth's oceans. Most of these kids had never seen Earth. They were born here, under different stars, breathing air that humans had made breathable through decades of terraforming work. Laura loved watching their faces light up when she described whales and dolphins, creatures so strange they seemed like aliens to children of the frontier. At the medical center, Dr. Ryan Foster was treating a farmer for a sprained ankle. It was typical work for him. Out here, medical emergencies were rare. The occasional broken bone, common colds, routine checkups for pregnant mothers. Ryan had trained for trauma surgery back on Earth, but he had not used those skills in years. He preferred it that way. Boring was good. Boring meant everyone was safe. Life in New Harmony followed comfortable patterns. People knew their neighbors. Children played in the streets without fear. Every weekend, the community gathered for meals and music. They had built something beautiful here, something worth protecting, though they rarely thought about protection. Why would they? Humanity had been exploring space for over a century now. They had met the Vortan Republic, a species of peaceful traders who valued art and philosophy. They had established contact with the Shakal Collective, mysterious beings who kept to themselves but never caused trouble. The galaxy seemed like a friendly place. That illusion shattered on a Tuesday afternoon. Sophie noticed it first. Her screen showed 3 ships approaching the system, moving fast. She frowned and ran an identification check. Nothing came back. The ships were not broadcasting any codes, not responding to hails, not following any of the standard protocols that peaceful vessels used. She called Jake over. He looked at the readings and felt his stomach tighten. Something was wrong. He reached for the communication panel to send out a general hail, but before he could speak, the ships opened fire. The first missile hit the solar collection array on the northern edge of the colony. The explosion was massive, sending debris flying across half a kilometer. Alarms began screaming throughout the settlement. People in the fields looked up in confusion. Children in the school started crying. No one understood what was happening. This kind of thing did not happen. Not here. Not to them. Jake's training kicked in. He started barking orders, raising what few shields the colony had, activating the defense grid. But even as he worked, he knew it was hopeless. New Harmony was a farming colony, not a military base. Their defenses were designed to stop asteroids, not warships. Sophie was already trying to send out a distress signal, but the attacking ships had jammed most of their communications. She switched frequencies desperately, looking for any channel that might get through. Finally, she found one. a narrow-band emergency frequency that was still open. She started recording. The ships descended toward the colony. They were ugly things, all sharp angles and dark metal. As they got closer, smaller craft began pouring out of them. Dozens of them. Landing craft heading straight for the settlement. Jake managed to get a visual of one of the ships. His computer identified them as Kravasi vessels. He had heard of the Kravasi Dominion. They were raiders, pirates who hit isolated colonies on the frontier, but there had been reports of them operating this far into settled space. The Galactic Council had assured everyone that the Kravasi were being monitored, that they were not a real threat. That assurance meant nothing now. Sophie's hands shook as she recorded the message. This is New Harmony Colony on Kepler 442b. We are under attack by unknown hostile forces. 15,000 civilians at risk. We need immediate assistance. Please. Anyone who can hear this, we need help. The first landing craft touched down in the main square. Doors opened, and creatures poured out. They were tall, covered in thick scales, with 4 arms and eyes that gleamed with cold intelligence. They carried weapons that looked brutal and efficient. The Kravasi had come to take everything of value and eliminate anyone who might report what happened. It was what they always did. Henry Cooper saw them from his field. He abandoned his harvester and ran toward his barn. Inside, he kept an old hunting rifle, a relic from Earth that he used to scare away the local wildlife that sometimes bothered his crops. He grabbed it and loaded it with shaking hands. It would not be enough. He knew that. But he would not hide while his neighbors were in danger. Laura Stevens heard the explosions and immediately started moving her students toward the underground tunnels that connected the school to the emergency shelters. The children were terrified, crying for their parents. She kept her voice calm and steady, even though her heart was racing. Stay together. Hold hands. We're going somewhere safe. Dr. Ryan Foster's medical training included disaster response. He started organizing his staff, preparing for casualties. But when he looked out the window and saw the Kravasi soldiers moving through the streets, shooting anyone who ran, he realized that his hospital would not be treating wounded. It would be making a final stand. Jake watched it all on his monitors. The colony was being overrun. His defense grid had managed to take down 2 of the landing craft. But there were too many. Dozens more kept coming. He had maybe an hour before they reached the command center. The distress signal from New Harmony reached Earth's Colonial Defense Command 6 hours after it was sent. The message traveled through quantum relay stations scattered across human space, jumping from system to system until it finally arrived at the massive military complex on Luna Station. It was 3 a.m, Earth time. But the command center never slept. Admiral Karen Wells was reviewing supply reports when the priority alert flashed across her screen. She was a veteran of 40 years of service, a woman who had worked her way up from enlisted ranks to command humanity's entire colonial defense network. She had seen a lot in her career, but she had never seen a Priority 1 distress call from a civilian colony. She opened the file and listened to Sophie Blake's message. The young woman's voice was shaking but clear. Under attack. 15,000 civilians. Need help. In the background, Karen could hear explosions. Someone was screaming. A child was crying. Karen played the message 3 times. Each time, her jaw got tighter. Each time, her eyes got harder. By the 3rd playback, everyone in the command center had stopped working and was watching her. She stood up and walked to the main display. With a few gestures, she brought up the location of New Harmony. It was far out on the frontier, weeks away at standard travel speeds. She pulled up information on the attacking force. Kravasi Dominion. Raiders. Multiple reports of colony attacks over the past decade. 0 survivors in any previous raid. The room was silent. Everyone understood what that meant. By the time any help reached New Harmony, there would be no one left to save. Karen made her decision in seconds. She turned to her communications officer. Send a fleet mobilization order. All available warships are to prepare for immediate deployment. Authorization code Wells Alpha 7. This is not a drill. The officer's eyes widened. A full fleet mobilization had not happened in 20 years. Admiral, may I ask the destination? Not New Harmony, Karen said quietly. We're going to the Kravasi home system. The room erupted. Officers started talking at once, asking questions, expressing shock. Karen raised her hand, and silence fell immediately. New Harmony is gone, she said. We all know that. The Kravasi don't leave survivors. But they're about to learn that humanity doesn't either. We're not going to rescue our people. We're going to make sure this never happens again. She walked back to her desk and started typing orders. Within minutes, those orders were racing across the solar system to every military installation humanity had built. On Earth, at the massive naval shipyard in geosynchronous orbit above the Pacific Ocean, Captain Daniel Hughes was asleep in his quarters aboard the UNS Vengeance when the alert came through. He woke instantly, years of training overriding the need for rest. He read the orders on his tablet and felt ice water fill his veins. The Vengeance was humanity's newest dreadnought-class warship. It was 500 meters long, carried enough weapons to level a city, and had a crew of 2,000 of the best-trained sailors in human space. Daniel had commanded her for 2 years, but they had never seen real combat. Now, that was about to change. He dressed quickly and headed to the bridge. His crew was already at their stations. They had seen the orders too. Daniel could see it in their faces. This was not a training exercise. This was not a patrol mission. This was war. All stations report ready, Captain, his first officer said. Daniel looked at the display showing Earth below. Somewhere down there, families were sleeping peacefully. They had no idea that one of their colonies had been destroyed. They had no idea that their military was about to unleash hell on the species responsible. Take us out, Daniel ordered. Set course for the rally point at Mars orbit. Maximum speed. On Mars, at the Marine Training Facility in Olympus Mons, Colonel Lisa Park was in the middle of a night training exercise when she got the recall order. She looked at her tablet, read the mission brief, and immediately started shouting orders. Pack it up. Everyone back to base now. We deploy in 4 hours. Her Marines scrambled to obey. They were used to sudden deployments, used to training that pushed them to their limits. But something in Lisa's voice told them this was different. This was real. Lisa made it back to her office and pulled up everything she could find on the Kravasi Dominion. The Kravasi operated on the frontier, hitting isolated targets and disappearing before anyone could respond. They were known to be ruthless, taking everything of value and killing everyone they found. She read the reports on previous attacks. 17 documented raids. Over 200,000 dead across multiple species. The galactic community had filed protests, held debates, demanded action, but nothing had been done. The Kravasi home system was in neutral space, outside any major power's jurisdiction. Attacking them would violate a dozen treaties. Lisa smiled grimly. Humanity was about to violate every single one of those treaties. At Intelligence Command in Geneva, Nathan Price was pulling together every piece of information that existed about the Kravasi military capabilities. He was a thin man with glasses who looked more like a librarian than a military intelligence officer. But his work had prevented 3 major conflicts over the past decade. Now he was planning for war. He compiled data on Kravasi ship designs, weapon systems, troop deployments, and defensive capabilities. He cross-referenced it with human military technology and ran simulations. The results were clear. In a straight fight, humanity would win. Easily. The Kravasi had never faced serious opposition. They preyed on weak colonies and avoided anyone who could fight back. They had no experience with real warfare. Humans, on the other hand, had been fighting wars since before they climbed down from the trees. Earth's history was written in blood. Every advancement in human civilization had come through or because of conflict. Humanity had spent 10,000 years learning how to kill efficiently. The Kravasi were about to get a lesson in what that meant. Nathan sent his analysis to Admiral Wells with a simple note. They won't know what hit them. Back on Luna Station, Karen was coordinating the largest military operation humanity had mounted since the colony wars 50 years ago. 12 warships were being pulled from their stations across human space. The 5th Marine Expeditionary Force was loading onto transports. Support vessels were being filled with ammunition, fuel, and medical supplies. The Vortan Republic contacted her, offering to mediate. Karen politely declined. The Shakal Collective sent a message, warning that attacking the Kravasi home system could destabilize the frontier. Karen ignored it. Earth's civilian government called an emergency session. Politicians argued about international law, about proportional response, about humanity's reputation in the galactic community. Karen listened to 5 minutes of debate and then muted the channel. She had her orders from the Secretary of Defense. Everything else was noise. The fleet assembled at Mars. 12 warships in formation, their running lights blazing against the black of space. Daniel stood on the bridge of the Vengeance, looking at the display that showed every vessel. Each one carried hundreds of people. Each one was a weapon aimed at the heart of the Kravasi Dominion. Admiral Wells appeared on his screen from Luna Station. Captain Hughes, you have operational command of the fleet. Your orders are simple. Jump to the Kravasi home system. Eliminate their military capability. Capture their leadership. Show them what happens when you attack humanity. Daniel nodded. Understood, Admiral. Karen's face was stone. Any Kravasi military target is fair game. Avoid civilian casualties where possible, but protection of your forces is the priority. If they fight back, put them down hard. We're not going there to play nice, Captain. We're going there to end this. Yes, ma'am. Lieutenant Peter Grant commanded the scout vessel, UNS Swift, a small, fast ship designed for reconnaissance and early warning. He had been on patrol near the frontier when the mobilization order came through. Instead of joining the main fleet, he received different orders. Go to New Harmony. Document what happened. Send detailed reports. Peter understood what that meant. He was going to a graveyard. The Swift dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Kepler 442b system 4 days after the attack. Peter's hands were steady on the controls, but his stomach was tight with dread. He had read the reports. He knew what the Kravasi did to the colonies they raided, but reading reports and seeing reality were two different things. His sensor officer, a quiet woman named Beth Clark, ran a full system scan. No ships in the area, sir. No energy signatures except residual radiation. Whatever happened here is over. Peter nodded and set course for New Harmony. As they got closer, the ship's long-range cameras started picking up details. What they saw made Beth gasp. The colony was gone. Not damaged, gone. The main settlement was nothing but rubble. The agricultural domes were shattered. The power stations were melted slag. From orbit, it looked like someone had taken a giant hammer and smashed everything flat. Take us down, Peter said quietly. I want surface scans. Complete documentation. Everything. The Swift descended through the atmosphere. The colony had been built in a wide valley surrounded by gentle hills. The valley should have been filled with golden wheat fields. Instead, it was scorched black. The Kravasi had burned everything. They landed near what used to be the main square. Peter and his team suited up and went outside. The air was breathable, but they wore suits anyway. They had a job to do. And emotions could not get in the way. The destruction was total. Buildings were reduced to foundations. Streets were cratered. And everywhere, there were bodies. The Kravasi had not even bothered to hide what they had done. Peter's team spread out, documenting everything. They found the school where Laura Stevens had taught. The underground tunnels were collapsed. The Kravasi had found the children and killed them all. Peter's recorder captured every detail, but he had to stop twice to steady his breathing. They found Henry Cooper's barn. It had been turned into a fortress. Scorch marks on the walls showed where defenders had fired from. Dead Kravasi soldiers lay in the dirt outside, proof that the farmers had fought back. Peter counted 40 alien bodies. The farmers had made them pay for every meter, but in the end, it had not been enough. Inside the barn, they found Henry and 15 other colonists. They had fought to the last bullet and then kept fighting with farming tools. It had not saved them. At the medical center, they found evidence of Dr. Ryan Foster's last stand. The hospital had been converted into a command post. Medical supplies had been turned into improvised explosives. The Kravasi had lost dozens of soldiers taking this building. It was the colonists' final victory, and it had bought the rest of the settlement. Maybe an extra hour. Peter's team worked for 3 days, documenting everything. They found the defense station, where Jake Morrison and Sophie Blake had spent their last hours. The communication equipment was destroyed, but the automated backup systems had kept recording until the power failed. They recovered the logs. Sophie's voice, calm at first, then desperate, then resigned. Jake's commands, trying to coordinate a defense with nothing to defend with. And at the very end, static. Peter compiled everything into a comprehensive report. 15,000 dead. Every building destroyed. The Kravasi had been methodical, efficient, and utterly ruthless. They had taken anything of value and erased everything else. He sent the report through encrypted channels to the fleet. His message was brief. New Harmony is lost. Total casualties. Evidence of war crimes. Recommend maximum response. Then he sat in his captain's chair and allowed himself one moment of grief. These had been people. They had names, families, dreams. They had come to the frontier to build something beautiful, and they had been murdered for it. Peter was not a violent man. He had joined the colonial service to explore, not to fight. But as he sat there, looking at the ruins of New Harmony on his monitors, he understood why Admiral Wells had ordered the fleet to the Kravasi home system. Some things could not be forgiven. Some crimes demanded justice. Far across the galaxy, the Kravasi Dominion was celebrating. Warlord Threx had returned to the capital world of Kravas Prime with his ships full of stolen supplies and technology. The raid on New Harmony had been profitable. Human technology was surprisingly advanced. It would bring good prices on the black market. The Kravasi High Council received him with honors. They were a council of 5, each representing a different military clan. They had ruled the Dominion for 3 generations, growing rich off raids against weak frontier colonies. Another successful harvest, the council leader said. The humans proved easy prey, Threx nodded. They had some defenses, but nothing significant. A few of them fought back with improvised weapons. We lost perhaps 60 soldiers taking the settlement, a small price for such valuable cargo. The council discussed expanding their raids. Humans had many colonies scattered across the frontier. Each one was a potential target. The species was new to space, still learning the rules. They would file protests with the Galactic Council, perhaps impose trade sanctions, but they would not fight back. No one, ever, fought back. The Kravasi had been conducting raids for over 2 centuries. They had hit targets belonging to dozens of species. There were always protests, always debates, always threats, but no one had ever attacked the Kravasi home system. The risk was too great. The political complications were too severe. Species that valued peace would not start wars over frontier colonies. The Kravasi philosophy was simple. Take what you want from those too weak to stop you. Avoid anyone strong enough to fight back. It had worked perfectly for generations. They had no idea that humanity did not think that way. They had no idea that humans valued every single life. They had no idea that attacking one human colony was the same as attacking all of humanity. They were about to learn. The council meeting ended. Threx went to his estate to rest. The stolen goods from New Harmony were being unloaded and sorted. Everything was routine. Everything was normal. On the other side of Crevasse Prime, at the Planetary Defense Headquarters, technicians monitored long-range sensors. Their job was to watch for asteroids, navigate shipping traffic, and provide early warning of any threats. It was boring work. Nothing ever happened. One technician, a young male named Kresh, noticed something odd on his display. Multiple contacts at the edge of the system. Moving fast. Very fast. He ran an identification check. Nothing came back. He reported it to his supervisor, who told him it was probably a sensor glitch. The system got false readings all the time. Reset the equipment and run another scan. Kresh did as ordered. The contacts were still there, and they were getting closer. He reported it again. This time his supervisor looked worried and contacted the defense fleet. The Crevasse Navy had 50 ships stationed around the home system. They were mostly patrol craft, designed for chasing pirates and escorting convoys. Real combat vessels were expensive, and the Dominion had never needed them. The defense fleet commander received the report and frowned. Unknown contacts approaching at high speed, not responding to hails. He ordered his ships to intercept and identify. It was the last order he ever gave. By the time his vessels reached the edge of the system, the human fleet was already in attack position. 12 warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. They were massive compared to the Crevasse patrol craft. The UNS Vengeance alone was larger than 5 Crevasse ships combined. Captain Daniel Hughes stood on the bridge and looked at the tactical display. 50 enemy contacts. Not a real threat, but enough to be annoying. He opened a channel on all frequencies. This is the United Nations Starship Vengeance. You attacked our colony. You killed our people. You will answer for this crime. The Crevasse fleet commander tried to respond, but Daniel cut the transmission. He turned to his weapons officer. Light them up. All ships, weapons free. Show them what we brought. The battle lasted 11 minutes. Human weapons systems, developed through centuries of warfare on Earth, tore through Crevasse shields like paper. Point defense lasers that could track supersonic missiles in atmosphere had no trouble targeting the slower alien ships. Railguns fired projectiles at a fraction of the speed of light. Missiles with smart targeting systems hunted down every vessel that tried to run. The Crevasse fought back, but their weapons were designed for raids on unarmed colonies. Against military-grade shields, they barely made a dent. One by one, their ships went dark. On Crevasse Prime, alarms began screaming. The defense fleet was gone. The bombardment of Crevasse Prime lasted exactly 2 hours. Captain Daniel Hughes watched from the bridge of the Vengeance as human weapons dismantled the Crevasse military infrastructure piece by piece. Defense platforms exploded in brilliant flashes. Military bases became craters. Weapons factories melted under concentrated fire. The Crevasse tried to mount a counterattack. Their remaining ships, pulled from patrol duties across their empire, rushed toward the home system. They arrived in groups of 3 or 4, desperate to defend their capital. Each group was destroyed within minutes of dropping out of faster-than-light travel. Human point defense systems were works of art. Developed through generations of warfare, refined in countless conflicts, they could track and destroy hundreds of targets simultaneously. The Crevasse missiles and fighters never got close enough to threaten the fleet. Daniel coordinated the assault with cold precision. He had studied the intelligence reports Nathan Price had compiled. He knew where every military asset was located. He knew which targets mattered and which were just for show. He made sure nothing important survived. On the planet below, panic spread through the Crevasse capital city. Civilians watched the sky light up with explosions. They had never experienced an attack on their home world. For 2 centuries, the Crevasse had been predators, Now they were prey, and they did not know how to handle it. Warlord Threx sat in his estate, watching the destruction on his monitors. He could not believe what was happening. The humans were supposed to be weak. They were new to space. They should have filed protests, maybe imposed sanctions. They were not supposed to bring a fleet of warships and start destroying everything. He tried to contact the High Council. The communication channels were jammed with emergency traffic. He tried to reach his own ship to escape. It was already gone. Destroyed in the initial attack. He was trapped. The bombardment ended. Silence fell over Crevasse Prime. Every military installation within targeting range was destroyed. The Crevassi Navy was gone. Their orbital defenses were scrap metal. They were completely helpless. Daniel opened a channel to the planet. Crevassi High Council. This is Captain Hughes of the UNS Vengeance. Your military is destroyed. You have one choice. Surrender completely or we turn your cities to glass. You have 10 minutes to decide. Go. He meant every word. The Marines were ready. If the Crevassi chose to fight, humanity would finish what it started. On the planet, the High Council met in emergency session. They were terrified. They had ruled through strength, and now their strength was gone. They argued briefly about resistance, about pride, about not giving in to threats. Then someone played them footage from New Harmony. Showed them what they had done to 15,000 humans. Showed them the children in the school. Showed them the farmers fighting with tools. Showed them everything. The council leader looked at the images and felt something the Crevassi rarely experienced. Shame. They had done this. They had ordered raids like this for decades. And now, the victims had come for justice. We surrender, he said quietly. Send the message. Complete surrender. The response came back in 7 minutes. Unconditional terms. The Crevassi would disarm completely. Their military would be disbanded. Their leaders would stand trial. Their empire would be reduced to a single system under galactic oversight. The alternative was extinction. They accepted. Colonel Lisa Park received the deployment order with satisfaction. The Crevassi had surrendered, but Marines still needed to secure the surface. Her troops would be the first humans to set foot on the Crevassi homeworld. The dropships descended through the atmosphere in formation. They were heavily armored transports designed to survive landing in hostile environments. The Crevassi had no weapons left to shoot at them, but Lisa took no chances. They landed in the capital city's main plaza. The doors opened, and 5,000 Marines poured out in perfect order. The Crevassi civilians who had gathered to watch backed away. The humans were smaller than Crevassi, but they moved with a coordinated precision that was terrifying to see. Lisa led her command squad toward the government complex. Crevassi officials waited outside, their forearms raised in surrender. They had been briefed on human customs. Raised arms meant no weapons, no threat. I am Colonel Lisa Park of the United Nations Marine Corps, she said. You are under arrest for war crimes, genocide, and crimes against humanity. You will be transported to a secure facility to await trial. The officials did not resist. What would be the point? They had seen what human weapons could do. Fighting would only mean death. Lisa's Marines spread through the city, securing key locations. They moved with practiced efficiency. Every building was cleared. Every potential threat was neutralized. Within 6 hours, the capital was under complete human control. Sergeant Chris Hayes led his squad through the government archives. They had orders to secure all records related to Crevassi raids. Nathan Price wanted every detail documented, every target they had hit, every species they had attacked, every life they had taken. What they found was worse than expected. The Crevassi had kept meticulous records. 17 documented raids, 200,000 dead across multiple species. But there were more files. Classified files. Evidence of raids that had never been reported. Small colonies that had simply vanished without anyone noticing. Chris compiled everything and sent it up the chain of command. The Krivasi had not just attacked New Harmony. They had been running a murder operation across the frontier for decades, and the galactic community had done nothing. On the Vengeance, Daniel received reports from the surface. The planet was secure. Krivasi leadership was in custody. No human casualties. It had been a perfect operation. He opened a channel to Admiral Wells on Luna Station. Mission accomplished, Admiral. Crevice Prime is under our control. Their military capability is eliminated. We're ready for Phase 2. I've work. Crevice Prime. Vac speed. End quote. Lokovin brow. Karen smiled grimly. Excellent work, Captain. Begin broadcasting the surrender terms to all Krivasi colonies. Any that resist get the same treatment as the home world. We're not negotiating. The message went out across the Krivasi Empire. Every colony, every outpost, every ship. Surrender immediately or face destruction. Humanity was not bluffing. The response was immediate. Krivasi colonies surrendered without firing a shot. Their governors knew what had happened at Crevasse Prime. They had seen the footage. They knew resistance was suicide. Within 48 hours, the entire Krivasi Dominion had collapsed. An empire that had lasted 2 centuries ended in 2 days. On Earth, the news spread rapidly. The civilian population reacted with mixed emotions. Some celebrated the military victory. Others worried about the political implications. Humanity had just attacked a sovereign nation and conquered it. The galactic community would have opinions. Those opinions came quickly. The Vortan Republic filed a formal protest. The Shakal Collective demanded an emergency council session. Smaller species sent diplomatic notes, ranging from support to condemnation. Admiral Karen Wells read every message and filed them all in the same folder. Irrelevant. Humanity had done what needed to be done. The galaxy could complain all it wanted. On Crevice Prime, Lisa Park stood in what used to be Warlord Threx's palace. The building was intact. Humans had been careful to avoid unnecessary destruction. This was not about revenge. This was about justice. Threx himself was in custody, along with every member of his command staff. They would stand trial for genocide. The evidence was overwhelming. The outcome was certain. Lisa looked out the window at the city below. Krivasi civilians were emerging from their homes, slowly realizing that the attack was over. The humans were not murdering them, were not looting their homes, were not doing any of the things the Krivasi themselves had done to other species. One of her Marines approached. "Colonel, we found something you should see." She followed him to a warehouse near the spaceport. Inside were crates full of items, taken from New Harmony. Personal belongings, technology, even children's toys. The Krivasi had stolen everything, planning to sell it all. Lisa stood there for a long moment, looking at those toys. Somewhere, on New Harmony, children had played with these. Now those children were dead, and their belongings were sitting in a warehouse on an alien world. She made a decision. Box it all up. Everything from New Harmony. We're taking it back. It belongs there, even if there's no one left to claim it. Her Marines worked through the night, carefully packing everything. It would go back to New Harmony. It would go into the memorial that would be built there. As dawn broke over Crevice Prime, the Krivasi people woke to a new reality. Their empire was gone. Their military was destroyed. Their leaders were prisoners. They were now subjects of the galactic community, their future uncertain, but they were alive. The humans could have exterminated them, could have done to Crevasse Prime what the Krivasi had done to New Harmony. They had chosen not to. 3 months after the fall of the Krivasi Dominion, the galactic community gathered at Concordia Station for an emergency council session. The station was neutral territory, built at the intersection of multiple trade routes, where representatives from every major species could meet to discuss matters of common interest. Today's matter was humanity. Specifically, what to do about humanity's recent actions. Ambassador Claire Murphy represented Earth at the proceedings. She was a career diplomat who had spent 30 years building relationships with alien civilizations. She had negotiated trade agreements, resolved disputes, and helped humanity establish itself as a respected member of the galactic community. Now she had to explain why humanity had just conquered another species' home world. The council chamber was a massive circular room with seating for over 100 species. Today, it was packed. Everyone wanted to see what would happen to the humans who had broken so many rules. High Speaker Valana of the Vortan Republic called the session to order. She was an elegant being, tall and slender, with skin that shifted colors based on her emotions. Right now it was showing deep purple, which meant displeasure. "We are here to address the actions of humanity in the Kravasi system," Valana began. 3 months ago, human military forces attacked the Kravasi homeworld, destroyed their navy, occupied their capital, and forced the surrender of their entire empire. These actions violated multiple treaties and established galactic laws. We must determine the appropriate response. Several species murmured, "Agreement." The Talvini delegates stood and began listing the specific treaties humanity had broken. It was a long list. Attacking a sovereign system, conducting military operations in neutral space, refusing to seek diplomatic solutions. Claire listened patiently. She had expected this. She had prepared for it. She waited until the delegate finished, then requested permission to speak. "Thank you, High Speaker," Claire said. "Before we discuss humanity's actions, I would like to present evidence to this council. Evidence that I believe is relevant to these proceedings." Valana looked surprised but nodded. "Proceed, Ambassador." Claire activated the holographic display in the center of the chamber. Images appeared, floating in the air where everyone could see them. Images from New Harmony. The council chamber fell silent as they watched. Claire had chosen the footage carefully. She did not show the worst of it. She did not need to. The destroyed buildings were enough. The burned fields were enough. The empty streets were enough. This was New Harmony, Claire said quietly. A civilian colony. 15,000 people. Farmers, teachers, doctors, children. The Kravasi Dominion attacked them without warning. They killed everyone. They took everything of value. They burned what was left. She changed the display. Now it showed data compiled by Nathan Price's intelligence division. Names. Dates. Locations. New Harmony was not the first. The Kravasi conducted 17 documented raids over the past decade. 200,000 dead across multiple species. How many of your peoples are represented in these numbers? Several delegates shifted uncomfortably. The Talvini delegate sat down, looking at the floor. His own species had lost a colony to the Kravasi 8 years ago. This council knew. Claire continued. Every species in this chamber knew what the Kravasi were doing. You filed protests. You held debates. You wrote resolutions. And the killing continued. She let that sink in for a moment. The chamber was completely silent now. When our colony was attacked, we requested help. No one came. No one could come. By the time any response reached New Harmony, everyone was dead. So we decided to make sure it never happens again. Not to us. Not to anyone. Valana's skin shifted to a lighter shade of purple. Ambassador Murphy, no one denies the tragedy of New Harmony, but your response was disproportionate. You attacked their homeworld. You conquered their entire empire. Yes, Claire said. We did. And I will not apologize for it. The chamber erupted. Delegates started talking at once, some angry, some shocked. Valana called for order, but it took several minutes for the noise to die down. Claire waited. When she could be heard again, she continued. Let me ask this council a question. How many more colonies should we have allowed the crevasse to destroy? How many more thousands should have died before action was taken? Because we all know the answer. Without intervention, the raids would have continued. Forever. She pulled up more data. Since humanity occupied Crevasse Prime, there have been 0 raids on frontier colonies. 0. For the first time in 2 centuries, species on the frontier can build their homes without fear. Is that not worth something? The Shakal Collective's representatives spoke for the first time. They were mysterious beings who rarely attended council sessions. Their voice was like wind through crystals. Humanity's actions have changed the balance of power in the galaxy. This sets a dangerous precedent. What is to stop other species from taking similar action? Claire looked directly at the Shakal representative. Nothing. That is exactly the point. The Crevasse got away with murder for centuries because everyone was too afraid to stop them, too worried about precedent, too concerned with rules. Meanwhile, people died. She gestured to the holographic display, still showing names of the dead. These people did not care about precedent. They cared about living, about raising their children, about building something beautiful. The Crevasse took that from them. We made sure they could never take it from anyone else. Valana called for a vote on sanctions against humanity. The proposal was to restrict human military operations, impose trade penalties, and require Earth to submit to galactic oversight of its colonial defenses. The vote failed. Not by a little. It failed badly. Over half the council abstained. Several species voted against sanctions. A few, including species that had lost colonies to the Crevasse, voted to commend humanity's actions. The chamber dissolved into chaos again. Valana looked stunned. This was not how galactic politics was supposed to work. There were rules. There were procedures. Humanity had broken them all, and the council was letting them get away with it. Claire sat quietly, watching the debate rage around her. She had won. Not because humanity was right, necessarily, but because every species in that chamber understood the message. Attack humans, and humans will respond. Not with negotiations, not with sanctions, with overwhelming force. The session ended without any formal action against humanity. Claire gathered her materials and prepared to leave. As she walked toward the exit, several ambassadors approached her privately. Some offered quiet congratulations. Others expressed concern about the future. The Talvini delegate stopped her. Ambassador Murphy, my people lost a colony to the Crevasse. We filed protests. We begged the council to act. Nothing happened. What you did. He paused, struggling with the words. Thank you. Claire nodded. She did not trust herself to speak. Back on Earth, Admiral Karen Wells watched the proceedings from her office at Luna Station. When the vote failed, she allowed herself a small smile. The politicians had done their job. Now, she could do hers. She sent new orders to the Colonial Defense Network. Every human colony would receive upgraded defenses. More ships. More Marines. Better warning systems. New harmony would never happen again because humanity would be ready. She also sent a message to every human colony, every outpost, every ship in space. The message was simple. You are not alone. You are not forgotten. If you call for help, we will come. Always. On Mars, Colonel Lisa Park was training new recruits. The Marine Corps had tripled in size since New Harmony. Everyone wanted to join. Everyone wanted to be part of the force that had avenged the colony. Lisa told them the truth. We did not save anyone. We were too late. 15,000 people died because we were not there. Our job now is to make sure we are never too late again. The recruits listened with serious faces. They understood. Being a Marine was not about glory. It was about protection. It was about making sure that when someone called for help, someone would answer. On Crevasse Prime, the Crevasse were learning to live under galactic oversight. Their military was gone. Their empire was reduced to a single system. Their leaders were serving life sentences in a penal facility, but they were rebuilding. Under supervision, they were developing peaceful industries. Some even expressed relief. The constant expansion, the endless raids, the violence had exhausted them. Now they could stop. A new generation of Kravasi grew up learning about New Harmony in their schools. Learning what their people had done. Learning why it had been wrong. It was uncomfortable. Painful. Education. But it was necessary. At New Harmony, construction crews worked to build a memorial. The entire colony site was being preserved. Every ruined building. Every scorched field. Future generations would come here to remember. Peter Grant supervised the construction. He had requested the assignment. After documenting the massacre, he felt responsible somehow. Like he owed it to the dead to make sure they were remembered properly. The centerpiece of the memorial was a wall with 15,000 names. Jake Morrison was listed first. Sophie Blake was next to him. Then Laura Stevens, Henry Cooper, Dr. Ryan Foster. All of them. Every single person who had lived and died in New Harmony. The inscription below read, "They sent a distress signal." We answered, "Let the galaxy remember. Known. Known. Known." The memorial opened 6 months after the attack. Humans came from across the colonies. Admiral Karen Wells retired from active service 2 years after New Harmony. She had spent 42 years in uniform, rising from an enlisted sailor to commander of all human colonial defenses. She had seen humanity grow from a single planet, species, to a major galactic power. She had made decisions that saved millions of lives and ended thousands more. The decision she would be remembered for was ordering the attack on Kravis Prime. Her retirement ceremony was held at Luna Station, in the same command center where she had received Sophie Blake's distress signal. Officers from across human space attended. So did ambassadors from a dozen alien species. Even the Vortan Republic sent a representative, though relations remained strained. During her speech, Karen spoke briefly about her career. Then, she addressed the elephant in the room. "People ask me if I regret ordering the attack on the Kravasi homeworld. They ask if I think we went too far. They ask if the response was proportionate." She paused, looking out at the assembled crowd. "My answer is always the same. I regret that we were not there to save New Harmony. I regret that 15,000 people died calling for help that came too late. But I do not regret making sure it never happens again." The room was silent. Then someone started clapping. Then, another. Within seconds, everyone in the room was on their feet, applauding. Karen stood there, accepting their recognition, but her mind was elsewhere. She was thinking about a young woman named Sophie Blake, whose voice she had heard on that distress signal, whose fear she had felt through the recording, whose death she had been unable to prevent. After the ceremony, Karen returned to Earth. She bought a small house on the coast of Washington State, overlooking the Pacific Ocean. She planned to spend her retirement reading, gardening, and finally getting some rest. But rest did not come easily. She found herself checking news reports from the colonies, monitoring fleet deployments, reading intelligence briefings that she no longer had clearance to receive but that old colleagues sent her anyway. One day, an encrypted message arrived. It was from someone she did not recognize. A Kravasi name. She almost deleted it. But curiosity won. The message was from the daughter of a Kravasi colonial administrator. She wrote about how her father had been forced to participate in raids under threat of execution, how their family had lived in fear of warlord threats, how humanity's intervention had freed them from that nightmare. "Thank you," the message ended. "You gave us back our lives." Karen read the message 3 times. She had never thought about the Kravasi, who did not want to raid colonies. The ones who had been forced into it. The ones who were victims of their own government. She wrote back. A short message. "I am glad you are free. I hope your people can build something better." The exchange of messages continued. Karen learned about the new Krivasi government, about the reforms being implemented, about the younger generation trying to atone for their elders' crimes. It was not her forgiveness to give, but she listened. On Mars, Colonel Lisa Park had been promoted to general. She now commanded all Marine forces in human space. Her job was to make sure that if another New Harmony happened, the response would be immediate. She developed new rapid response protocols. Marine units stationed at strategic points throughout human territory. Ships on standby, ready to deploy within hours. Intelligence networks monitoring potential threats. The training regime changed too. Every Marine learned the story of New Harmony, learned the names of the defenders, learned about farmers fighting with tools and doctors making bombs from medical supplies. It became part of Marine culture, a reminder of what they were protecting. Lisa also established a tradition. Every year, on the anniversary of the attack, Marines across human space would observe a moment of silence. 15,000 seconds of silence. One for each person who died. It took over 4 hours. Marines stood at attention the entire time, no matter where they were or what they were doing. It was their way of saying, "We remember. We will always remember." Captain Daniel Hughes continued to command the UNS Vengeance. The ship became famous after Krivas Prime. Other species' military officers requested tours. They wanted to see the weapons systems, the defenses, the technology that had crushed the Krivasi fleet so easily. Daniel gave the tours personally. He showed them everything. Let them take pictures. Let them ask questions. He wanted them to see. He wanted them to understand what human warships could do. He also made sure every visitor saw the memorial wall he had installed in the ship's main corridor. 15,000 names, etched in metal. A permanent reminder of why the Vengeance existed. One Vortan officer asked him if displaying the names was not excessive. Daniel's response was simple. Every person on this ship knows we fight for those names, for the people who cannot fight for themselves. If you think remembering the dead is excessive, then you do not understand why we fight. The Vortan officer had no response to that. Nathan Price left military intelligence and took a position with the Colonial Historical Society. His job was to document what happened at New Harmony and ensure the truth was preserved for future generations. He compiled oral histories from everyone involved. Peter Grant's account of finding the ruins, Lisa Park's memories of the surface assault, Daniel Hughes' description of the battle, even recovered logs from Jake Morrison and Sophie Blake. But he also sought out Krivasi accounts, interviews with soldiers who had participated in the raid, testimonies from officials who had ordered it. He wanted the complete story, not just the human perspective. The result was a comprehensive archive. Thousands of documents, recordings, and images, all available to researchers, students, and anyone who wanted to understand what had happened and why. Nathan's final report concluded with a simple observation. New Harmony was a tragedy that could have been prevented. The galactic community knew about Krivasi raids for decades and did nothing. Humanity's response, while extreme, was the only thing that stopped the killing. Perhaps that says more about galactic politics than it does about humanity. The report was widely read and widely debated. Some agreed with his conclusion. Others argued that humanity had overreacted. The debate continued for years. But one thing was clear. The galaxy had changed. On New Harmony itself, the memorial became more than just a place to mourn. It became a symbol. Other species who had suffered attacks began building similar memorials. The Talvini erected one for their lost colony. The Xandari honored their dead. Slowly, a network of memorials spread across the frontier. They all bore similar inscriptions. Never again. We remember. They mattered. Peter Grant watched as the memorial network grew. He had retired from the military and become the permanent caretaker of the New Harmony site. It was not a glamorous job, but it was important. Visitors came daily. Humans bringing flowers. Aliens paying respects. School groups learning history. Peter greeted them all, answered their questions, and made sure they understood what this place represented. One day, a young Crevassi arrived. She could not have been more than 20 years old. She stood in front of the memorial wall for over an hour, reading names. Finally, she approached Peter. "I am sorry," she said, in heavily accented human standard, "for what my people did. I know it does not change anything, but I am sorry." Peter looked at her for a long moment. She was not alive when the raid happened. She bore no responsibility for it. But she carried the weight, anyway. "Thank you," he said. "It does matter. Remembering matters. Learning matters. Making sure it never happens again matters." She nodded and left. Peter never saw her again, but he heard later that she had become a teacher on Crevice Prime, teaching the next generation about New Harmony, about the cost of violence, about the importance of protecting the innocent. Across the galaxy, humanity's reputation transformed. They were still known as friendly traders and helpful allies. But now there was an edge to it, a warning. Humans would be your best friends or your worst enemies. The choice was yours. Pirate activity in human space dropped to almost zero. Raiders avoided human colonies entirely. When asked why, one pirate captain said simply, "I am not interested in becoming a cautionary tale." The phrase, "Don't wake the Deathworlders," entered common usage among spacefaring species. It was said half jokingly, half seriously. Everyone knew what it meant. Humans came from a harsh world. They had evolved through constant conflict. And if you threatened their people, they would bring that violence down on you with precision and overwhelming force. But there was another side to it. Human colonies became safe havens. Species fleeing persecution knew they could find refuge in human space. Human ships responded to any distress signal, not just from human vessels. Human marines deployed to protect alien settlements threatened by raiders. Humanity had shown it could be terrifying when provoked. But it also showed it would protect anyone who needed help. That combination of strength and compassion reshaped galactic politics. 10 years after New Harmony, Ambassador Claire Murphy gave a speech at the dedication of a new human colony. The settlement was called Second Harmony, built deliberately as a memorial to the lost colony. "We cannot bring back the 15,000 who died," Claire said. "We cannot undo what happened, but we can honor them by continuing their work, by building homes, by raising families, by showing that violence and fear will not stop humanity from reaching for the stars." The colony thrived. Within 5 years, it had twice the population of old New Harmony. Within 10, it was one of the most prosperous settlements on the frontier. Aliens lived there alongside humans, building a truly multi-species community. They built a memorial too, smaller than the one on New Harmony, but no less important. It bore the names of the original 15,000, and below them, a simple message. They dreamed of peace. We live that dream. Admiral Karen Wells died peacefully in her sleep at age 78. She was buried with full military honors at Arlington National Cemetery on Earth. Representatives from every human colony attended. So did ambassadors from 24 alien species. The Crevassi government sent flowers. The note read, "To the Admiral who showed us that justice matters. Thank you for not choosing revenge." Karen would have appreciated that. She had never wanted revenge. She had wanted justice. She had wanted to protect her people. And she had wanted to make sure no one else suffered what New Harmony suffered. In that, she had succeeded. The legacy of New Harmony lived on. The story was taught in schools, across human space and beyond. The memorial site remained a place of pilgrimage. The lessons learned shaped galactic policy for generations. But perhaps the most important legacy was simpler. It was the knowledge, shared by every species in the galaxy, that humanity would protect its own, that distress signals would be answered, that evil would be confronted, that the Deathworlders, when awakened, were unstoppable. And that was exactly how humanity wanted it. The galaxy had learned its lesson. The hard way, perhaps, but learned nonetheless. Touch one human, and all of humanity would respond. Attack a colony, and face the might of Earth's fleets, threaten the innocent, and discover what humans were truly capable of. It was a lesson written in the ruins of New Harmony and the ashes of Krivasi military might. A lesson that would not be forgotten for 1,000 years. The SOS that awakened the Deathworlders had changed everything, and the galaxy would never be the same. To pay their respects. But surprisingly, aliens came too. Families who had lost loved ones to Krivasi raids. Species who had filed protests that went nowhere. They came to New Harmony to honor the dead and to thank humanity for ending the threat. It became a place of pilgrimage. A reminder of what happens when evil goes unchallenged. A promise that it would not happen again. 5 years later, applications for human colony worlds had increased dramatically. Alien families specifically requested to settle near human populations. When asked why, the answer was always the same. We feel safe with humans nearby. It was the highest compliment the galaxy could give. It was a mercy the Krivasi had never shown anyone else. Daniel stood on the bridge of the Vengeance, looking at the planet below. The operation had been a complete success. Not a single human casualty. Total military victory. The Krivasi threat was eliminated, but he felt no satisfaction. 15,000 people were still dead. New Harmony was still gone. Nothing they did here would bring those people back. This was not victory. This was just making sure it never happened again. He opened a fleet-wide channel. All ships, prepare for departure. We're going home. The job is done. All. The human fleet assembled in orbit. 12 warships that had just changed the balance of power in the galaxy. They had shown what happened when you attacked humanity. They had shown that humans protected their own. The galaxy had been watching. And the galaxy would remember. My ships were approaching orbital range. This was not supposed to happen. This could not happen. The High Council scrambled to respond. They tried to contact the attacking fleet. They tried to surrender. They tried to negotiate. Daniel ignored all of it. Begin orbital bombardment. Military targets only. I want every defense platform, every military base, every weapons facility turned to ash. Spare civilian infrastructure where possible, but if they shoot at us, take them out. The Vengeance and her sister ships opened fire. From orbit, they could hit targets with pinpoint accuracy. Krivasi military installations exploded, one after another. Colonel Lisa Park watched from the troop transport. Not yet, she told her Marines. Wait until they've softened them up. Then we go down and finish the job. The channel closed. Daniel turned to his crew. You heard the Admiral. We're going to hit them hard and fast. The Krivasi think they can attack our people without consequences. We're going to teach them different. Helm, lay in a course for the Krivasi home system. All ships, prepare for jump. On the troop transport Fury, Lisa Park addressed her Marines. 5,000 men and women in combat armor, carrying weapons designed for fighting in every environment, from vacuum to toxic atmospheres. They were the best soldiers humanity had ever produced. Listen up, Lisa said. We're not going to New Harmony. There's no one left to save there. We're going to make sure the bastards who did it pay the price. We're going to their home. We're going to show them what human Marines can do. And we're going to make damn sure they never attack another human colony again. The Marines roared their approval. They had all seen the footage from New Harmony by now. Images recovered from satellites before they were destroyed. They had all heard Sophie Blake's final message. They were ready. The fleet jumped. 12 ships vanished from Mars, orbit in flashes of light, entering faster than light travel. Their destination was 3 weeks away at maximum speed, but to the Krivasi, already celebrating their successful raid on New Harmony. Those 3 weeks might as well have been 3 seconds. Their fate was sealed the moment they attacked that colony. Humanity was coming. And humanity was bringing war. Sophie finished the distress signal and set it to repeat on all frequencies. She looked at Jake with tears in her eyes. "Do you think anyone will hear it?" Jake did not know. Space was vast. Help was far away. But he nodded anyway. Someone will hear it. Someone will come. He hoped he was right. He hoped that humanity would not forget about them. Outside, the Krivasi warlord Threx watched the conquest from his command ship. This was his 40th raid. Humans were new to the galactic community, barely worth noticing. Their colony would fall like all the others. By tomorrow, New Harmony would be empty. By next week, it would be forgotten. He had no idea that this raid would be different. He had no idea that he had just made the worst mistake of his life. The distress signal traveled out into the darkness, racing toward Earth at the speed of light. It carried Sophie's voice, young and frightened, begging for help that might never come. But it would come. Humanity would hear the call, and nothing in the galaxy would stop what came next.